it's paradoxical and incomprehensible at times, but I think good literature is like that, because true art, here's something about true art. This is something I learned from Jung. It's so smart. He was so smart. So imagine that you inhabit the land that you know, conceptually and practically, and then imagine outside of that, there's that massive space of things that you don't know. And even outside of that, there's the space of things that no one knows, right? So it's the known territory surrounded by the unknown. That's the canonical archetypal landscape. And the unknown manifests itself to you, and that's where new knowledge comes from. But the question is, how is that knowledge generated? And it doesn't just leap from completely unknown to completely articulated in one move. That isn't how it happens. It has to pass through stages of analysis before it becomes articulable. And the first stage of analysis, as far as I can tell, is that you act it out. So if something really surprises you, the first way that you react to it, your category is actually embodied. You'd like this. That's your first category. It's not conceptual at all. It's embodied. And then maybe you start to, like, you're at home at night and something startles you and you freeze, and then it's dark, and then your imagination populates the darkness with whatever might be making the noise. And that's the sequence. It's like embodied response, imaginative representation, exploration, articulation. That's how information moves from the unknown to the known. And artists are the people who stand on that imagistic frontier, and they put themselves out into the unknown, and they take a piece of it and they transform it into some mythological image. And they don't know what they're doing exactly because they're guided by their intuition if they're real artists. Otherwise, they're just propagandists. They have to be contending with something that they don't understand. And what they do is they make it more understandable, and then people gaze at those artworks or they listen to the stories, and then they start to become informed by them, but they don't know how or why. I was at the Modern Art Museum of Art in New York. I'm afraid I don't remember which one, unfortunately, but I was in this amazing room. It had all these priceless paintings from the late Renaissance hanging in it. Each painting worth, who knows, $1 billion maybe. They're priceless paintings. So the room it's a shrine, and it was full of people from all over the world who were looking at these paintings. You think, well, what the hell are these people doing coming to this room looking at these paintings? Like, what are they up to? One of them was a painting of the Assumption of Mary, right? Brilliantly composed, and there was all these people looking at it, and I thought, what are they doing? They don't know what that means. Like, why are they looking at that painting? Why is it in this room? Why does it cost $1 billion? Why is that painting worth so much? And the answer to that is, well, we don't really know. Like, it happened. They're sacred objects in some sense, and we gaze at them in ignorance and wonder. And the reason for that is that the unknown shines through them at us and in partially articulated form. And so, well, that's the role of art. And that's the role of artists, And real artists are contending with the unknown, right? And they're possessed by it. They have a personality trait, openness, that makes them do that. They can't even help it. And I've had lots of creative people in my clinical practice, and I can tell you the worst thing for creative people is to not be creative, because they just die. Because it's like maybe you're a tree with a few major branches, That's your personality. So if you're extroverted, man, you can't be cut off from people because you just wither. And if you're agreeable, you have to be in an intimate relationship or you die, And if you're conscientious, man, and you're unemployed, you're just going to eat yourself up because you have to have a duty and you have to carry a load because you just can't stand it otherwise. And open people have to be creative. They have to be, because otherwise they die. They don't have any vitality. And so they're cursed with the necessity of putting a foot out into the unknown and making sense of it. And then they're also cursed with the necessity of trying to make a living while they're doing that, which they can't, because you can't. It's almost impossible to monetize creative action, as many of you who are creative will no doubt find out. It's very, very frustrating. It's not that creative action is without value, right? Because the creative people are entrepreneurs, and the creative people revitalize cities, and the creative people make things magnificent and beautiful. You think about what's happened in Europe over the last 1,000 years, say 2,000 years, this amazing, unbelievable collaboration to make things so beautiful that they're jaw-dropping when you walk into them. And you think about the economic value of that, right? I mean, I think it's either France or Spain that's the most visited country in the world. It's one of those two. I think there's more tourists in France than there are people most of the time. And part of the reason for that is it's just so damn beautiful. You just can't stand it. And you think, what's the economic value of that? It's absolutely incalculable. And what's interesting too is that you build that beauty in, and then the farther away you get from it in time, the more valuable it becomes, right? Instead of decaying, it has exactly the opposite effect. Its value magnifies. And one of the things that I'm deeply ashamed of as a Canadian is that our sense of beauty is so underdeveloped. We're so primitive. It's not even primitive, that's the wrong word, because, you know, I don't know what it is. It's second rate. It's second rate at least. It's terror too, because people are afraid of beauty. But the idea that art is, the conservatives really have a problem with this in particular, because conservative people tend not to be that creative. And it's a mystery by temperament. It's a mystery to me, because they should be concerned with economic development, and beauty is so unbelievably crucial to economic development that it just yells out at you, you know. So anyway, so that's what artists are doing. And so one of the things I would say is buy a damn piece of art, you know. Find one that really speaks to you, and buy a piece of art, because you invite that into your life, and it's a look out if you do it. If it's a real piece of art, because you'll also get a little introduction to the artist, and then that'll seep into your life, and that'll change things like mad. But it's unbelievably worth it, because it opens your eyes to the domain of the transcendent. That's the right way of thinking about it. A real piece of art is a window into the transcendent. That's what it is. And you need that in your life, because you're finite and limited and bounded, right, by your ignorance and your lack of knowing. And unless you can make a connection to the transcendent, then you don't have the strength to prevail.